Hey guys, Pat here. So let's talk about the box office earnings, or the lack thereof, of Blade Runner 2049, the Denis Villeneuve sequel to Ridley Scott's cult classic 1982 sci-fi masterwork, Blade Runner. Um, I'm a big Blade Runner fan. I have a video on this channel where I pretty much just praise that film for like 30 minutes. I like the sequel. I don't love it as much as some other people do, but that doesn't mean I hate it. Don't forget that I like the movie. But however you feel about that film, honestly, or the new one, any of those films, or Ridley Scott or this director or Gosling, everyone always likes to throw that in there how they feel about certain things, these subjective things. But I'm not here to really go into that. This is like about, numbers. Basically, the movie cost a lot of money and it didn't make a lot of money. That's not saying it's a bad movie or it's a failure because they made it the way they did. It's a failure. I think lots of good movies bomb all the time, and I think lots of bad movies make money all the time. So it's really just perspective. I never thought this was going to be a hit movie, so it's not really a shock to me. I'm only shocked that they spent so much money making the movie. I don't really get how it even happened. It kind of blows my mind. If Ridley Scott had directed it, I might have understood. And it's not even that like I wanted Ridley Scott to direct this, but to me it might have made sense if he would have got that much money to do it. Like if they would have given him 150 million, but the fact that they put it on Denny, whose biggest hit was Arrival that he was just coming off of. I just figured, I don't know. They used Ridley Scott's name as a producer, and obviously Covenant didn't do well this year either. But I don't know. It's a pretty big project to give to someone who at that point I think was just kind of a cult director. Hadn't really, but I guess Arrival, got a bunch of Oscar nominations. But I think they already hired Denny for this way before that happened. I think he was already working on this movie, so it's weird. I'm a fan, big fan of him, but it just kind of surprises me that he got that much money. I figure if they were going to give him money, they would have given him like $90 million total and said, "Okay, go make a movie with that." I can't believe they gave him like blockbuster money. I'm glad they did. I think it I think it made the movie look better probably, but it's still just like wow. So the people who produced it were Alcon Entertainment. And now it's coming out because a lot of people aren't sure how much the movie's going to lose and how much it's going to make. Now, not everyone's going to lose big on this. This isn't a total failure for everyone involved. Apparently, Sony's going to be getting their money back, and they put $110 million into the movie. From this Hollywood Reporter article, but it says Blade Runner 2049 losses could hit 80 million for producer Alcon, right? The sequel to the 1982 cult classic will earn less than its 400 million gold because in a previous interview producers of the film had said that the film needed to make 400 million worldwide to make a profit. So, we're just going off what they said there. The film's at 241 million right now, and that's not close enough, obviously. The film cost 155 million dollars to make, and I'm not quite sure what the marketing budget was and all that, but I'm sure it was very big. I've read rumors that it was very large, and the movie has a lot of money in it. But I'm just gonna skim through this article because obviously you could go read the article, but just get some points out here real quick. Okay. Alcon Entertainment and Sony's Blade Runner 2049 had everything going for it, and they talk about Denis Villeneuve that it had 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, Alcon and its investors are facing about 80 million in losses. Insiders close to the project tell the Hollywood Reporter the Hollywood Reporter. So sources are telling them that it's about to be 80 million in losses for Alcon. As it winds down its run, the movie's global gross through November 5th was 240 million. That was a few days ago. They say it's a poor showing for a film that cost $155 million to produce after rebates and tax incentives and before marketing. But Sony is ultimately expecting to recoup its $110 million investment in the Alcon production because of the agreement brokered by Sony Motion Picture Group Chairman Tom Rothman, who also was involved with the Dark Tower film, which performed very poorly, but kind of had a similar thing where they didn't lose a lot of money on it. Sony's going to be the first studio to get back any revenue in exchange for giving up a bigger slice of the back end profit. So they don't get a lot of the back end profits. Okay, so that's like merchandise and DVDs and when it's on television and a lot of that. So they probably are saying we just want the money up front that it makes at the box office. So all the money that this is going to make, the profit, from what I understand, I could be wrong, the profit's going to Sony first. Sony's the first to get their money, and then after they get their money, everyone else gets paid when the movie makes profit down the road, and they can get back end later, but Sony won't be getting as big of a cut of that. Is how I'm reading it, but like I said, I could be wrong. But that makes sense to me. But they're saying it's a good deal for Sony, which they, in addition to co-financing Blade Runner, is releasing it overseas. So they released it overseas. They were the distributor, and the North American release was Warner Brothers, and that was because they have a long-standing distribution deal with Alcon. Warner's is not a co-financer. So okay, so Warner's didn't put any money up for the movie. Like they didn't put money to make the movie, but they released it. So the American release is Warner Brothers. Sony got the international release. This is kind of an inside thing for people to know, kind of how some movies are made. Not everything's made by the same studio. Not like somebody can distribute a movie and then another studio pays for the movie and then other people invest in the movie and everyone makes money differently. And sometimes actors are producers. There's a lot of things like that. Like it's not all like Disney where it seems to be a pretty tight machine running all these franchises. I mean, even though Disney has a lot of different, they have stuff on Netflix and that's ABC and they own ABC and then there's ABC Network. But that's how it is. A lot of movies. A lot of movies sometimes don't make as much money as they could because it's split up between a lot of people and there's that's something I think a lot of people don't know. I think some people think that like, oh, this one studio, Warner Brothers paid to make Blade Runner 2049. They released it, it's theirs, everything, and that's not how it is. But kudos to Sony, I guess, for jumping in here like that. But they're not really losing anything, so all they get out of it is that they help produce a very acclaimed movie. It's better than having a straight up bomb, I guess, on their hands. Anyway, here was a statement. The first film was very much a cult classic, which translates into a nice film. Despite the film's excellent reviews, it could not grow the audience beyond its core, says Wall Street analyst Eric Handler of MKM Partners. Blade Runner's losses could be minimized over time if ancillary revenues are particularly strong. Sony declined comment. Alcon has declined to comment, including as to what Blade Runner's performance means for the company founded 20 years ago by the producers Andrew Kosov and Broderick Johnson after convincing FedEx founder Fred Smith to go into business with them. So basically, the film needed to make $400 million. They're saying, I think, for everyone to make money. That was probably so they could Warner Brothers would make money and Sony would make their money and people involved would make their money, and Alcon would make some money. But because it's made $240 million, only Sony's really going to be making money and Alcon's got to take the loss, and it's going to be a big hit to the studio because they haven't had a bunch of hits recently. Yeah, not much to say here. I just thought this was a nice little thing to talk about because a lot of people, when the first weekend broke, there was a lot of discussion about this movie being a bomb. And as the weeks went on, people seemed to get more. There seemed to be more misinformation out there about how much money it was making and how much money it was losing. But now a lot of this gives us clarification, and we know where it's at, and we know that, we can say that it did lose money, and it is going to cost people money now, but it's not terrible. It's not the worst thing in the world for everyone. Sony and Warner Brothers are going to be fine. So from this isn't going to take them out. So that's the upside to this. This isn't like the worst news in the world. If you're a fan of the movie and you are upset that it didn't make a lot of money and you're upset that people didn't go see it, it's it wasn't that bad. The bombing of it. It's still a film that I would call a bomb, big time. But if you think they spent too much money on it, if you think that it was the film itself, if you think it's just because the first Blade Runner is a cult classic and there's only a certain audience that will even go see a Blade Runner movie, or even for Cyberpunk, quite frankly, that audience doesn't seem to be consistent. So anyway, all I got to say about it is, if you make films like this in the future, the only thing I would think is maybe try to keep the budget a little lower and work on making less more, and maybe you don't need big gigantic sequences and set pieces. The way you can do them on a lower scale, I think. And I'm not saying that this film has any problems in that way, but I don't know. I feel like Denis Villeneuve could have made this film for less money. That's how it feels. I feel like he could have made a film at this quality with the same amount, with like less money. But that's just me. I don't know. It felt a little pricey to me. I think they could have cut down on some parts, but maybe it was just very expensive to get all the actors and uh, all that stuff involved. It was probably just very expensive. Everyone they hired, they were working with a lot of talented big name people, in every level of production. Everyone who was working on that film was very talented. So, anyway, like, comment, and subscribe, and please rewind your VHS tapes before you bring them back to the store.